Well, on the evolution of think tanks, we are now in a world where there's nearly 4,000, 5,000 think tanks around the world, and think tanks in China and Russia as well as many other countries. So we live in a world of think tanks, and they're getting bigger and to some degree more influential. By far and away the most influential think tanks, we're perfectly honest about it still, are in the United States. And to some degree, one of the challenges, it seems to me, about think tanks is not think tanks in America, which are well established and well positioned in relationship to government, but think tanks in Europe, think tanks in other parts of the world. So the way I'd pose the question isn't how think tanks in general are evolving, it's how think tanks outside the United States have to evolve to be able to compete with what America has, either in terms of money, position, access to government. And I think that brings me to a second point in terms of what think tanks have been able to achieve, particularly in Europe. I'm not so critical of all my colleagues in think tanks in Europe, not at all. I think they've done a good job. However, I think there is a responsibility that think tanks have, and I just wonder, looking back over the last few years, whether many of the think tanks themselves were able to predict and anticipate some of the real crises which Europe then had to start confronting after 2009. Not only economically, but in terms of migration, in terms of a lack of leadership, some of the institutional problems, the architectural problems. Looking back now, I think we have to be a little bit modest, we have to be a bit careful and say to ourselves that a lot of European think tanks thought Europe was the perfect place. It was doing so well, we were living in a wonderful world, we were going up financially, we were going up economically, everything was integrating, and I think we were not critical enough as think tanks within Europe of thinking of some of the real fundamental challenges that lay ahead. And I think we've been caught out by surprise in Europe by what's been happening, and that includes the think tanks as well.
Michael Cox for the Institute of International Affairs, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.